Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Roxhill Webinar, where we will learn everything we need to know about FT How to Spend It. We are so excited to have Jo Ellison here, the editor of FT How to Spend It, and my colleague Alessia Horwich, editorial director at Roxhill Media. And my name is Emma Cripwell, and I consult for Roxhill Media, and I do the publicity for the Pig Hotels. So I understand how hard it is to get into FT How to Spend It, yet all of our clients want to be in it. So it's great to have you all joining us. And Jo, tell us, you've been in your position for a year now, and what changes have you made in the past year and more specifically over the COVID months?
Oh, gosh. So when I started at the magazine, I suppose I had like three main objectives to try and accomplish within my first 6 months, which was a redesign, which is pretty straightforward. I think every editor always wants that. I wanted to move our website from the microsite that we were on, which was howtospendit.com, back into the infrastructure of ft.com, because I wanted to be kind of part of the kind of ecology of the Financial Times. And there was a third thing, which I can't remember anymore, but I did do it.
Was it moving the editions?
Yes, that was it. I wanted to, thank you very much. It was to kill the Friday, not kill the Friday edition, but move all of ours onto a Saturday schedule so that all of our publications happened on the same day of the week. They don't happen every week, but I wanted to make it at least consistent in that respect, so that like if you were buying the weekend magazine, you had a good chance of getting How to Spend It. So those were the big three for me in terms of like what I wanted to do physically with the magazine. And then I guess sort of in an emotional way, I wanted to kind of rethink about like the spend. It was like a magazine born in 1997. It's still kind of, I mean, even earlier than that, it had a very strong sense of luxury in what I think was kind of a pre-millennial attitude. Yeah. And I really thought it was time that it kind of got into the 21st century a little bit, and thought about the spend in terms of our lives and our time and what luxury is today and what it means to people. And I think that's become more and more and more pertinent as the pandemic has continued. I mean, I think the way we spend our lives now and what we consider luxury has changed enormously in the last sort of 15 years and probably in the last 5 months.
Yeah, absolutely. Hence your most recent one called How to Spend It Wisely, which I think is, I sort of thought that was kind of a platform for maybe how you were going to run many issues going forwards, because, you know, even the great billionaires of the world still want to spend their money well, don't they?
Yeah, and I think the kind of whole narrative of luxury has changed enormously. I mean, things like sustainability is something that you hear in like almost every conversation you have with any kind of big design group or brand. I think people are really concerned with kind of artisanal quality and craftsmanship and like what you're investing in, whether it's going to sort of, you know, be worth it, what you paid for it in another 10 years. I think people are being more mindful. I mean, obviously there's still consumer desire, and I'm not going to pretend for a second that we're not a consumer title, but I do think people are thinking about the way they spend their money slightly differently. And it's less, for me, I think, probably today about the shiny marble kitchen islands and the kind of like massive super yachts around the Mediterranean. Not that they don't exist, but it's as much to do with like art and like what you're putting on your walls and how you're decorating your house. And, you know, there's a lot of other facets of the spend that I wanted to explore.
Absolutely. So just before we came on, you said that you now have 36 issues a year.
I think it's 36. It might be 37 or 38, but I think that's right.
And how do they pan out over the year? And do you, your one 2 weeks ago was a property special. How many specials do you have?
I think at this point we've probably got probably around about 14 or 15 themed issues. I mean, some are consistent and some we do every single season. So obviously travel twice a year, fashion, women's twice a year, men's twice a year. We do 2 properties, 2 design, 2 arts issues. And then some are kind of one-offs. So we, you know, there was a sort of boats one that was done. This year we changed it into an escape issue because it just like, I mean, it was smack bang in the middle of lockdown, and like the idea of doing a whole issue dedicated to sort of yachts just seemed a bit kind of crazy. But we kind of kept the idea of the sea and the theme there. And then I introduced a couple of others like How to Spend It Wisely. I don't think that's an issue that I would be running every year. But it's something that I think is kind of nice to have as a kind of, you know, we've done it now and there's a kind of precedent for it. And likewise, we're doing a philanthropy issue, which will be How to Give It, which we actually initiated in February, but it was a pull-out supplement, but I've tried to expand, I've expanded that, and so we're making that a much more kind of consistent player in the kind of annual portfolio of magazines.
Excellent. And how far in advance do you start working on each issue?
How much, sorry?
How far in advance do you start working on each issue? I mean, for something that's running in, say, January, are you starting to think about those stories now?
Yeah, I think, I mean, we are kind of, I'm always mindful that the kind of fashion issue is the sort of first big issue of the next season. And then we kind of run on from that point onwards. So some things I'll be working on for like up to a year. Like I love back, like a house, for example, like a house story, like we did Martin Newson's house in Ithaca, which obviously requires someone to go there. You need to plan it. Like Peter Copping, we just did a couple of weeks ago. I'd been talking to him about that for 18 months, but then other stuff we can turn around sort of almost that week. Like I think I'm doing an interview next week that I've got to write within about 24 hours. So, you know, it sort of varies. And if there's something great that I want to squidge in, I will do. But obviously the bigger stories that are cover stories need about at least a couple of months, at least. Yeah,
I can imagine.
Sorry to interject just here. And Joe, with the special issues, do they have fixed dates already, or do you sort of, they do?
Yes, okay. They do. The schedule's up and is available from our advertising department, who do a press release, I think, which says which ones are going to be which. And I think that one is just been set for next year. So we do know what we're going to be doing at this point.
I should, sorry, interrupt both of you and say that Roxhill is putting together a calendar of special issues across Glossy magazines for 2021 at the moment. So that will be available to you. Sorry.
No worries. I mean, it's interesting this year, especially with themes as well, because, you know, we were coming into our design issue at you know, as lockdown was kind of happening, and we go to press 2 weeks before publication. So there's been quite a lot of jiggery pokery. We've had to like move things around and like rethink things, and like hundreds of exhibitions got closed, hundreds of like planned product launches got postponed. So we couldn't just like carry on regardless. And I think what had been kind of historic about How to Spend It is that it had been sort of set in stone a long time in advance. Right. And I think coming from the daily paper, I'm a lot more flexible and a lot more kind of up for ripping shit up and starting again. So that's been, we've had to be more agile. I mean, it's like, that's just the way of the world. So that's, sorry, just to sort of speak to that as well.
No, that's great. That's good to understand that, actually. And I can imagine how agile you've had to be. We'll just go through the magazine a bit now. Your regular slots, so things like the Aesthete, the Find, the Cause, does one person commission all of those, or do they split into various, given to various editors? Because your features editor is Tim Auld. How much does he commission?
He does. Tim does kind of all the manly things. Sorry. So he does food, drink. He does kind of anything with an engine, so motoring and stuff like that. He also does men's watches, and he does watches. And then he would probably kind of take on a like kind of slightly random features that don't have a kind of automatic home, but they are. You know, cigars, for example, I would probably get to talk to him. He also does the back page, which is How I Spend It, which is a kind of piece that is written usually by a writer or kind of personality who has a kind of special interest. So that's him. Then Double Act is done by Jackie, who also does a lot of the interiors and design stuff. Yeah. So she looks after that. B, who's the deputy editor, looks after the Cause. She also does Cult Shop. I mean, it's one of those things, you know how any organization is, you end up looking after something, you're not really quite sure why or how, but different people for different things. And then I just feed into all of them really, because people just sort of throw ideas and pictures at me from all angles.
So if we're not quite sure who's going to be interested in this particular story, do we bother you with it, Joe, or do we send it to Beatrice?
I mean, I certainly don't mind being bothered by it, and I quite often just bat it straight off to the person that I know it's going to be. But if it's design interiors home, probably Jackie's your woman. If it's something kind of with a bit of philanthropy or just something you can't work out whether it's got a natural place, B's very good. Tim has a list, as I said, of all those. Jess Beresford is pretty much fashion features, so she's got an enormous portfolio actually, because she's also doing jewelry and beauty with me, so she's got a lot on. And we've got the style director Isabel, so if it's something which is more kind of shoot related or something that's about product placement or kind of a conversation you want to have about that, she would probably also be good. And then of course you've got Maria Schollenberger, who does travel.
Yeah, and the travel special's coming up next weekend. And then when is the other travel issue? Is it sort of January, February?
No, actually it's in May. It's quite late. Yeah, okay. We do May, and then we do this. So we did a May one, and then about a month later we did Escape, which is effectively a kind of cheeky other travel one also. So she's quite involved with that.
Yeah, brilliant. With images, do we always include them in a pitch to you? I mean, there are so many beautiful images in your magazine that they're obviously critical to the story. Would we include those in a pitch at the beginning of the process?
I am a visual person, so I find it really useful. Like if someone wants to tell me about an amazing house or a kind of fabulous new product line, or they've got an amazing lookbook, it just seems to me like cutting to the chase. It's just showing somebody what you've got. And I think it's a huge sell for anyone if you say, like, we've got these amazing visuals, no one else has seen them, you can have them exclusively, blah, 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 blah. And it also makes it just all run quite seamlessly. And I mean, I think it might be historically just working at Vogue. We just never commissioned anything without really thinking about how we're going to illustrate something. Yeah. So I'm very visuals first kind of person. Yeah. So it worked for me.
At this stage, I always love to ask, what do we as a PR community do that annoys you? Because we don't want to annoy you. We really want to please you.
No, I don't actually find. I like to think I have a relatively good relationship with most PRs. I'm pretty quick, so I like to tell people pretty much straight away if it's a yes or a no. I wouldn't leave anyone dangling for ages. And once I've said no, I pretty much mean it. Yeah. I'm unlikely to like come back after the 5th attempt and decide that actually I really love this story. No, the thing that like anybody, I just get really riled over exclusivity bullshit. So if you've said you can have it exclusively and then you go, oh, I didn't realize you meant, I couldn't do another supplement. It's like, well, that stuff just drives me mad. But it does, I mean, I imagine that's kind of every journalist in the world.
That's fairly normal. And the one we often get is from other editors like you is, please read our title, because, we can help ourselves by pitching to the right person by
It's really nice if a PR has already had a sort of set. I like it when someone says, oh, this might work for you for a double act, or I really thought maybe this person would work as an SC or as or as a kind of independent feature, or maybe in the fix, which is the bit at the front, which is very consumer led, like new releases, new titles, new things to buy, all that product launch stuff. When they've slightly got a kind of, you just think, oh, well, they actually do care about this magazine. They're not just like acting on behalf of somebody else trying to plug a story.
Absolutely. So just going back to the fix, that is basically stuff we can all buy. So it's anything from a motorbike to a sofa to
a private jet this week. Yeah, you can buy £58 million private plane if you want.
Great. But yeah, I'll have a couple. So that, because I was kind of like thinking, that's very much the stuff we want to spend our money on if we've got lots of money. So and then the column with like food, is there any particular emphasis on food? Or I see that Alice Lascelles does the drink. Is that just the latest stories that are coming in, or is there anything more complex to it?
I mean, I think it's sort of been quite different this year, because obviously ordinarily the food column was a restaurant review, but Ajesh came in and started at the beginning of the year. So within about a month of his starting, the restaurant started closing. So already he'd like tonally been thinking about food on a kind of more general level. So obviously it's an opportunity to talk to book writers or chefs or different things that are going on, or even TV shows, or so to look at food not only from a kind of restaurant point of view. And also the big factor for me is that we are all stuck in our living rooms, but we are also an international publication, so it's really important for me to try and get an international remit. So it's not only, I mean, obviously it's been difficult for food particularly to kind of get out of the country and go and eat in Austria, but if it's a European place or something about that, it's just great to have that as well, because those readers really are looking for that from the magazine.
And sorry, Jo, can I just interrupt there, Jo? For that new sort of approach to food that you were forced to change it, have you seen a differing sort of response in audience levels to that? Has it been as successful online as it was before, or have you seen new readers?
I mean, we had a restaurant review that went in for a long time, who would look at a restaurant individually every week, and I thought that was nice, but a lot of other publications were doing it as well. And I felt food has become such a kind of huge part of our lifestyle, from like whether it's Instagram sort of food bloggers, or to just places that we like, or themes around food. I've found that there's been way more engagement actually since we've taken it. Not that the restaurants aren't popular, and if they're really important and new opening, of which there have been very few this year, obviously, then you would want to be in there, obviously, as soon as possible, and that will get great coverage. But we just like haven't had the opportunities in the same way that we would.
Yeah, absolutely. Christmas coming up. Has the Christmas gift guide gone to bed? Are there a few Christmas gifts?
It's going as we speak.
Going to bed.
Yes, okay. That's what I'm going back to after I finish this. Yeah, no, the Christmas. So we're doing a gift. The gift guide happens like frighteningly early, sort of early November, and then we'll be doing a celebration issue. I want to celebrate later in November, which has got a bit more of a kind of bit more kind of party theme, or yes, spirit raising ideas. And that's kind of those are the two main Christmas ones. But actually, we'll probably carry on doing themed ideas, like Christmassy themed ideas, up until the 19th, because why wouldn't we?
And with you being a publication that appeals globally, do you tend to favour British brands or not? Do you tend to spread the love?
I think we try and spread the love. I mean, I'm not going to pretend that we're not enormously beholden to our advertisers, and most of those aren't British brands, let's face it. So I think it's a kind of juggling act. It's like, consumer interest, like what do they actually care about? What do people want to read about? Where are they going? What are they shopping for? Sort of obligation stuff that we have to do, and I'm very happy to do with the kind of advertisers, make sure they're all happy, and then kind of an idea of introducing people to things they might not have heard of. So yeah, I think we are a British publication, but we, the FT now, I think online is read by, I think 60% of the readers are American in the US, and whilst I would never want to skew US, and I think the reason why US readers read it is because it has a slightly it is anchored in Europe. I think it is an important point of differentiation for us. I just do think of us as an international magazine. Like I try not to be too British, because I think it just alienates people a little bit. Although obviously, sorry, just to kind of backtrack, like for example, like a great British brand that's a kind of amazing success story and has a story to tell about that is something that we would obviously celebrate. But at the same time, I'd probably celebrate an Irish brand that did the same, or a Mexican brand that did the same. So it's about supporting local business for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Emma, did we ask about audience?
Well, specifically, so the audience, so 60% is American. The other 40%, where do they come?
This is online, so it's not, right. And it's not true necessarily of the weekend from the daily, because obviously you've got different audiences for different things. But yes, we have a audience split, I find. Sorry, what's the demographic
of your readers? How old are they? What gender are they? That kind of stuff.
On the print, it's really hard to know, because we don't have like a finite, no one has that research at their disposal. Obviously online, I think it probably skews more male to female, and it probably skews kind of like definitely in an older bracket, but not frighteningly old. They're like, and they, I think, increasingly younger, because they've done all sorts of like engagement deals, and there's this whole new agenda thing that's going on that's bringing in a lot of student readers. How to Spend It Online is still free to read, so that I think helps engage our kind of like different platforms, because our Instagram account has like quadrupled since I started, so that's something that we're really building on. But
do you guys use your Insta account for anything promotional?
We are doing a bit now. Yeah, we've just started. I mean, obviously I kind of wanted to make sure it was sort of tidy first, but yeah, we are beginning to.
Who's the right person to get in contact with for doing that kind of thing?
I think usually start with me, and then I kind of just take it on to whoever else is kind of, I sort of like hook everyone up depending on what it is, and whether, you know what I mean? It sort of works from there. And quite often it's something that might have like an affiliation anyway with something that they might want to do online. So it's a kind of we do all these sort of packagey deals, so it's kind of different according to whatever it is that they want to get out of it. But yeah, I mean at the weekend, obviously it's far more kind of, the gender balance is much more even than it is, I think, probably during the week. And I think because of the kind of we are a consumer title luxury, we're just going to have a huge focus on fashion. So I'm always going to like skew a little girly. But I mustn't forget that there are a lot of men who are reading. So that's always a bit, I need to butch up sometimes.
With some of your freelancers like Grace Cook or Kate Finnegan, would PRs ever pitch to them directly, or do you tend to outsource stuff to them?
Well, historically, the way it worked at How to Spend It was very much led by the contributing editors. So PRs, I do think, pitch very specifically to the writers, and then the writers brought their ideas to the editor. But I'm a bit too nosy. I like to know kind of like what the whole overview is. So I would much rather delegate down rather than upwards. But obviously, I'm very grateful for people who bring ideas. I mean, a lot of writers do bring things, and it's a real mix, I find. Like Amy Farrell always has amazing pitches, and she always brings me stuff, and I think PR's like talking to her, and she's very good at selling a story, so she does a great job at it. So but it kind of depends. I mean, Ajesh, I would obviously, if it was food related, I would kind of go direct to him, because he's the guy who's going to be writing it, and then he will then in turn pitch it, and we'll discuss it.
We've had a question about interiors, actually. Who is the Ajesh of interiors? I mean,
Jackie Daly's the editor.
I meant freelance, sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I would definitely go to Jackie in that instance, because she's got there's so much interiors and design that I think it's better for someone to have like an overview of the whole thing. And then work with individuals, which isn't to say don't ever speak to a freelancer, but I think it's just, for me, I prefer it to be like a desk commission, because that's our job. We're commissioning editors.
Exactly. Who would you say was your biggest competitor as a title? So when it comes to an exclusive, who do you prefer to get it off, as it were?
A T magazine.
Yeah, T. And and other than T, anything in the UK?
M. Le Monde constantly trying to stiff us, or we're trying to stiff them. Yeah, it's because they're French language, so I think sometimes there's a kind of like, oh, but it's okay, isn't it? It's France, and it's like, but the luxury brands are doing a good, clever little job there. WSJ. Obviously New York Times, New York Times, WSJ, M. Le Monde are the three that I kind of keep in mind. A lot of the time I find that we're British Vogue quite often is like our immediate kind of like either or situation, especially for like arts related stories. I mean, obviously less so for fashion, but then it depends really. I mean, I'm a total psycho about exclusivity usually. I don't really want anyone else doing anything. I try to get global exclusivity.
We will come to you first, Jo. We have an enormous amount of questions coming in. Alessia, would you like to ask some of them now?
Yeah, should we start with, I know we've mentioned travel and the travel specials, but I mean, I've seen the cover for the travel issue and the 3 questions, should we travel at the moment? But how are you guys feeling about that? Are you thinking about trips? How are you thinking about what you're feeling towards long haul in terms of, I guess, sustainability? And what are your plans?
We really we agonized more about the last travel issue, because that was like at a point where you couldn't travel, so it was very weird, and in the end we just sort of thought screw it, and we kind of did a piece that we did stuff which was travel, but it was sort of hopefully sort of broader think pieces about Maria had gone back to California and she was there, so it was kind of an opportunity for her to write about California and what was going on in her life and what travel had meant in her life. I love a personal story, and I think this has been an amazing opportunity to kind of explore those sort of journeys that mean something more, but obviously within a luxury context. So I have got someone going canoeing up the Adirondacks, which might not be a typical How to Spend It activity, but I think you'll discover that the word outdoorsman was actually invented for sort of rich people pretending to be outbackers. So it does sort of fit in with a kind of strange psychological habit of people. But yeah, I mean, and also people have really responded to this week cover. It's a picture of a Greek island. I mean, let's not forget that's where we want to be, and that's in our dreams. And I think rather than worry too much about whether or not I can go there tomorrow, I think you just want to be able to dream of some point in the future when you will be back on that island in the sun. And it's so powerful. I mean, I just do find that that's what people, they want to do that. And like, they love a swimming pool, and I can't, you know, I'm not going to fight that. I think that's perfectly legitimate. I mean, I cannot tell you the response to anything Italian. Anything about Italy just goes bananas.
Wow.
Really?
Which isn't that surprising, I suppose.
Is that the only one?
No, but it's like just Italian Riviera is just a real like trigger for people. Wow. I think they just go Postano,
so I'm guessing you're thinking past press strips at the moment. It's more like, is there a more interesting story on the ground? Is there some other way we can approach it?
Well,
and then
people are doing prep. People are traveling. Like a lot of photographers are like, shag it, I'm going off to Mexico for a month. You know, I'll do something there, and I can either talk to somebody who's on the ground or someone who's planning to go. Yeah, it kind of works out. I think there's going to be a bigger focus on local travel for sure, like travel within the UK, which I don't think historically How to Spend It did an awful lot of. But again, like, yes, travel in the UK for people who live in the UK, but then what's the equivalent in France? What's the equivalent in America? What's the equivalent in Australia? And then I've also had the opportunity to do much bigger kind of reported pieces. So in the new issue, we've done a big piece about like Africa and the future of wildlife tourism. Yeah. Because obviously the safari is horribly sort of affected by all of this, and so many conservation projects and kind of, you know, works that have been put in motion by various travel companies are being jeopardized. So I got Sophie Roberts to kind of do like a really big overview of it all. And kind of just to make us think about, like, if we do go on a safari, which is very much what our readers do, you know, how to do it in a kind of ethical, sensible, mindful, intelligent way and still get the best experience out of it.
Yeah, definitely. We're having lots of questions about beauty. You said that you do some of the beauty alongside your fashion editor, but what is a beauty story for the FT? How to Spend It? You know, what are you looking at? What kind of themes this year?
I think just, I mean, pretty much like anything else, like big trends, anything that you see that's kind of coming up. Like I like to try and kind of put things together. Like we very rarely do a single brand beauty story unless it's like epically huge. We tend to try and get it into some sort of like general trend story. I think consumers are interested in, like, I mean, they're super interested in skincare at the moment, and like, you know, how to look better on Zoom and all those things, and like what this is doing to our skin and our mental health. I think wellness more generally has become a huge topic anyway, and especially in the luxury world. So we're doing a lot more kind of like science of wellness pieces, and like things that also will have more of a unisex appeal. So it's not all just like lipsticks and bubble baths, which is absolutely something that we are interested in, but it's also about things that will appeal to male readers as well, who you know, have a slightly different perspective. I mean, they love activities as well. Like we couldn't run enough things on like cycling or kind of, you know, endurance running and all that kind of stuff. They love all that. And I'm not saying it's all men, but it's definitely something which I'm doing more and more of, and there just seems to be like a never-ending appetite, and it performs incredibly well online as well.
Really?
Yeah. Are men interested in sort of facials and you know, like cosmetic, not actual plastic surgery, but, you know, sort of?
Yeah, I think they are. I think they probably don't like to talk about it a huge amount, but they'll definitely pick up a magazine. But as long as I think it's the way you sort of package something. I think if you deliver something which looks incredibly girly and it talks about like tweakments, I think then men are going to be a bit like, oh my God, this isn't for me. But I think if you do it in a way that sort of suggests that there is a kind of huge appetite for it, then they will. But I mean, in fairness, they are much more interested in watches and gadgets.
And somebody has asked, related to that, about experts and expert comment. Are you guys big on having, you know, in wellness stories or in beauty stories, expert comment, and how should that be presented to you?
I mean, it would be kind of, in an ideal world, I suppose I'd have some sort of like a Rolodex of experts that we could call on for when we needed. I mean, I do find that the science bit with beauty, like it can be really challenging, and we have quite rigorous fact checking, and sometimes it just doesn't like bear out. You know, you're like, this is just bullshit. You know, you can tell me that like whatever this evening primrose oil is doing, but where is the actual evidence to say that it is? And we have really good writers who I think are very thorough. But I think anyone who is an expert is always a very useful person to have on call.
Yeah, definitely. We didn't actually cover this at the beginning, but online versus print, now that How to Spend It's on the main website, do you guys do standalone online features or?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do a lot less. Like when I started, we had a vast amount, and like it was a lot of tiny little product release stories, but if you're putting all those stories onto ft.com and you're looking for homepage pickup and all that kind of thing, I wanted to do a much more curated editorial list. So at the moment, while we're publishing weekly, what we're doing is we're seeding the stories in the magazine out throughout the week, and then we might do additional things where there's just not enough time because the deadline is tomorrow, or it's something that's just happened and we've been given an exclusive and we can turn it around, but we won't be able to get it into print. But I like to think of I try to think of all How to Spend It stories as all being part of the same. You know, it's the same stuff, it's the same commissioners, it should be the same standard of writing, it should be the same expectation. I think there was a terrible period in history with luxury publications where the web was like the kind of shit that you didn't want to put in print, and the rest of it was like, and those days are over. So, you know, the only reason why it isn't in print is because there wasn't time to put it in there.
Yeah, right. I'm guessing also that means no pitching listicles and, you know,
I mean, you can pitch them, but like we do them ourselves, and I mean, they are not that helpful, I don't think. We put together a lot of like curated lists because we've got so many aesthetes and so many, you know, we've got so much information sort of at our disposal. So yeah, I prefer things that are a bit more solid. I'd like to think that most pitches, like if someone was pitching something to me, that they're not like looking for a cutout thing on a shopping page. I mean, if that is all they're looking for, then great. But I would sort of hope that if they were pitching it, they really, you know, in their dreams, what they want is 2 pages and it's like a solid story, you know what I mean? Because then you're like, you can kind of work with it rather than here's 5 things that have come out there, you know. You're like, oh, thanks, you know, I can go shopping as well.
And we've had a great question from Alice Clifford. What makes an art story for How to Spend It rather than featuring in Life and Arts? Does it have to be an investment or philanthropy angle?
Yeah, I mean, you know, we try and make sure there's something to spend. So commercial galleries, artworks that you can buy, artists who are for sale. It gives us a pretty broad remit. I mean, there's not much that that doesn't qualify, possibly to the chagrin of the arts department. But yeah,
do you guys fight over things a lot?
Not so much actually, because we would very rarely just do a art exhibition, you know, so we don't really kind of step on their toes too much there. Sometimes with and I doubt we would really do that many just straight artist profiles, but we do increasingly do more arts because I like them. And so do readers, and I think it just makes everyone feel a bit more intelligent, which is nice.
It does. I mean, does it make sense that if somebody's pitching an art story to you and to Life and Arts, that they make them different rather than sending you both the same thing?
I think you just need to be super transparent, because there's nothing worse than having a piece in the works and knowing that same PR's pitched the story to Life and Arts, and then you might have like the same thing. I mean, that's just like incredibly unhelpful. I think if you're pitching to the FT, you've got to imagine that you're a one hit thing, unless you're like, you know, trying to give me Brad Pitt, in which case I'll work it out somehow. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, I think you've got to be kind of reasonable, that you can't expect like 20 stories about the same thing.
I've got a question which is normally with other publications we say, you know, what's the cap on price? You know, should we not go above? Whereas with How to Spend It, I mean, if someone sent if someone sent you a key ring for £30, it's kind of not expensive enough. And how does I suppose you just take the quality of it, do you?
yeah, I mean, our kind of rule of thumb is that it needs to be.
See Joe's dog behind her.
Oh, yeah. My rule of thumb is sort of pretty much just not really high. We don't really do high street.
Okay.
We try to do luxury, but it can be. I mean, I'm very, very keen to support like craftsmanship and local artisans, and like we've got about 50,000 ceramicists, rather possibly too many. I've just got a real weakness for them. So I think anyone who's sort of put love and care and is hand making something, and they might be making a £20 mug. That's fine, or like an amazing toothbrush. I mean, I'm kind of all for that, but I wouldn't. And then the upper cap, it doesn't really exist, but there is a point. I think, you just sort of look at something and go, is this going to be like wildly offensive? And you try to balance it, but there's always going to be a kind of, I'm not going to. We can't pretend that we are what we are, and our stuff, the stuff we put in the magazine is going to cost a bit of cash.
Yeah.
I wonder, does that count for restaurants too? Because we've had a question about sort of a trendy East London indie restaurant, and that doesn't necessarily mean expensive, but apparently it was set to go in one of your pieces and didn't feature. But now that you're not covering restaurants and reviews, how is a small restaurant like that going to get in?
We're not covering them. We very much are. It's just that there haven't been that many restaurants open for like the last 7 months. So we just haven't been able to, and most restaurant openings were postponed or in the process of being. So there's not that much new to write about. But like, no, I mean, is
there any other way that you guys are covering restaurants in the absence of anything new, or is it more just on the back burner for now?
No, we'd like look at trends. So I mean, I'm just trying to think like. Like for example, this week we've done this is a piece that's upcoming, but it's about Diwali and it's about chutney. And so Ajesh has spoken to like 6 different restaurateurs who do chutney and how they do it and what their take on it is. So it's a way of talking about restaurants. So like we would do that, or he's always talking to restaurants about everything. I mean, he's got to have source material. He's not just like making it all up. So they all feature, and I think like it's the same with all of these things. Like luxury, as I said at the beginning, like luxury isn't necessarily a super yacht in the Mediterranean anymore. It's like someone in a beautiful campsite halfway up the Himalayas, but like heating soup in a can, but having this incredible experience and view. And I think that's how, and it might be eating somewhere comparatively kind of cheap, but it's like the food's amazing. So I feel as though if it's a luxury experience, then it kind of doesn't really matter what the price is. But I just wouldn't like promote like mass produced high street kind of tats, because that is not luxury.
We've been asked how that relates to tech. Do you have I assume that if you've got a nifty piece of tech that improves your quality of life, then it doesn't matter how much it costs, or
I mean, no, it doesn't. I mean, Jonathan has done the tech pages since, I don't know, God was a boy, and he's still doing them, and he kind of has a pretty good steer on what sometimes it's just a brilliant little thing and it's 20 quid, and other weeks it's like a Tesla battery pack that costs 27 grand, but it just sort of it just varies from kind of product to product, and you try and have a balance. You just try not to have like every single thing on the page is like over £10,000. It's slightly obnoxious, isn't it?
We're getting a lot of questions about jewelry and sustainable jewelry and things like that. What is the line on jewelry? And I saw there was a big piece in it relatively recently. It's on the site at the moment. So is it a going concern that you like to cover?
Sustainable jewelry, or just jewelry?
Just jewelry generally?
Jewelry is very important to us. Yes, we are hugely enthusiastic about all jewelry. I mean, all things all the time. Like trends, people, designers, new brands, emerging brands, sustainable brands funded by Black-owned businesses. We try and, again, I do like to try and combine things. So standalone jewelry stories would be less common probably on someone, but if we can find 3 people who all are doing something which we think is kind of compatible, we'll often do it like that. Vivian Becker's still very much our kind of like points person on jewels. But Kate Finnegan writes quite a lot of jewellery as well. Carol Walton does jewellery. I quite often sort of get somebody random to do it because I feel like Nick Folkes might do it because he wears quite a lot of rings or something like that. And obviously he knows his watches, so he's got an in with a lot of these people around. So it's like, I think the best person is Jess, and then and me, and we kind of just talk it through.
Great.
Do you saying that, if you want to put 3 brands together, do you appreciate it when a PR has thought about that and then comes to you and says, I've got this brand, but there's also this brand and this brand? Or do
I'd be amazed if a PR did that. It's like, there's my good friend at another agency who represents us. But yeah, they want to team up, then that'd be great.
Well, you'd be surprised. Some editors are like, no, I want to do it all myself. I want to, find the other ones.
I think, everyone wants ideas. I mean, no one wants to feel that they're being spoon-fed or like being kind of manipulated. But at the same time, if someone's like a clever, intelligent PR who's sort of like got the wherewithal to put ideas together, then bring it on. Like, thanks very much. Save me 500 emails. It's nice.
Sorry, you go, Emma.
The FT How to Spend It team having coffees with PRs now, drinks, or are you still very much working over Zoom and from home?
It's kind of a mix, I think. It sort of depends what everyone's comfortable with themselves. I'm doing a bit of both. I haven't done that many Zoom presentations, actually.
Right.
Although I'm quite fond of them.
Okay.
It's just time. I find that I find that the day is incredibly long now, and I just never have time to do it. I don't know when I did my meetings in the past, but I'm sure everyone must feel like that. Yeah. And like, I do find it quite hard to like be introduced to a new brand in a Zoom call, because it's just so like, it's very intense. But it is quite useful. So I'm trying to get out and see people as much as possible.
Okay, good to know.
Sustainability is a big thing for our PRs. Is it a big thing for you? Are you guys thinking about it?
Yeah, I mean, How to Spend It Wisely had a hugely sort of like sustainability, and it's like something that comes in a lot through all of the philanthropy. I try and have something with a sustainable angle in most issues. Okay. But it's that sort of thing as well. Like, there's a lot of like, oh, everyone's talking about it and everyone's really, really keen and everyone wants to. But like, if you were truly sustainable all the time, I think people would, it's a bit granola, isn't it? It just gets a little bit, it gets a bit worthy. And I don't think How to Spend It should be beating people over the head with a kind of worthy narrative. I think it's nice to try and incorporate it into there, but I certainly don't want to tell people what to do. How they spend their lives is sort of up to them. But you just hope that you're responding to the ebbs and flows of like popular opinions. So if people do want to go on sustainable holidays, then you hope that you're providing them like with the wherewithal to find them. And likewise with brands and products. I feel as though with a lot of the new brands that are coming through, they've all got a bit of a sustainable kind of angle going on. Like, I just think it's sort of written to the DNA of most emerging brands. It's the older brands, I think, that are having to make massive adjustments to their kind of infrastructure and distribution systems and productions. That is a much bigger challenge for a big, old kind of like multi-million-pound company to become sustainable.
Yeah. Okay, we've only got time for a couple more, but fitness is coming up. Are you guys covering fitness? Are you bothered about fitness?
Yeah. Well, as I said, I mean, like the kind of adventuring marathon man type stuff is hugely popular, like really popular. And actually there's a guy, Fergus Scholes, who's doing more and more. He did a lot online, and I'm bringing him into the magazine a lot more. He does quite a lot of that, and it's just like every time he does anything, people love it. Women's fitness, yes, we do. I mean, it's kind of fairly ad hoc, sort of as and when there's a good story. I don't have a kind of allocated space for fitness, but obviously beginning of the year is going to be a time when we're going to do more. And if there seems to be something, I mean, I guess
pitching that to you now a good idea?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, fitness sort of covers so much, because it might be a gadget that Jonathan might put on Technopolis, or it might be something that Fergus writes about. It might be something that has a kind of holiday travel theme because it's about going to a spa, or it's about going somewhere other. So it can kind of fit in all sorts of different brackets. So it's usually quite a good idea to like just put me on it, like, and then I can kind of work out where it could go. But it's something that I think we just keep an eye on it all the time. It kind of all just falls under the umbrella of beauty, but it's not really.
Can I ask a quick question about Clara and Rosanna and Bayer Simons, Jo?
Yes.
What roles do they play, and how much? I saw that Clara wrote quite a lot in this weekend's issue. Do you?
Yeah, they're all sort of junior editors, and they've all been writing a lot since I started because they're brilliant. And they do, they do a huge number of the fic stories.
Yeah.
They put together sidebars. They're very good people to pitch to. I would encourage you to pitch them often, because I'm always looking for like that thing down the side, or 6 new cents, or here's some, that kind of thing. And the more of a relationship they have with people, the better, because then they're kind of they can be growing these ideas themselves. And they write pretty much across the board. They wrote a huge piece on the future of beauty in the summer. It was like a massive cover story, and she did it brilliantly. So they're really good. I think Rosie, I would say, probably is more food, interiors, arts. Bayer's fashion, style, beauty, but they kind of all do the same. So it's worth just sort of keeping in touch with all of them.
Great. Okay.
Oh, and Clara does the find, which is good, and she
always does the find, does she?
And she does the shopping page, so she should know it. I mean, most people, I would hope, would know her already, because they'll have a long, fruitful relationships with her already.
We hope.
All the contacts, guys, are on Roxhill. They've been updated, and they should all be accurate now.
Cool.
Brilliant. Do we have to finish now? Yes. Oh gosh.
I've got one more. Really quiet. Do you ever get product inspiration from influencers? It's really weird.
But like what? Looking on Instagram and going, I want her shoes. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm a bit of an Instagram junkie. So I mean, and I found it an unbelievably useful resource over the years. Most times anyone emails me anything about a brand, I'll check it on Instagram. Like anyone, I mean, it's the first thing you do. It's like, what's your mood board? What's your lookbook? How kind of coherent is this vision? Do I like the stuff? Like it's the easiest shorthand for me. I mean, I would never check out very rarely go to someone's website. I would probably go straight to their Instagram account.
Okay, that's good to know.
And oftentimes it's become the way we kind of communicate with people as well, because we say, I love what you're doing, can we talk? So it works that way as well. And influencers are useful.
Wonderful.
Okay.
Do we need to finish with the Roxhill plug? Yes.
Yes, please, everyone. Thank you for watching today.
Wait, don't leave us.
We've got loads more great insider tips and things like that on our Twitter, which is at Roxhill Media, and also on LinkedIn as well. So please do follow us and sign up for our daily newsletter that goes out from our journalist. Kate Finnegan is one of them, who writes for Jo. You can do that on our website.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Alessia, thank you, Jo. That was so useful. The screen on the right is just going fantastic webinar. So we had a huge, biggest audience ever. And thank you so much.
Hopefully, don't all email me. Like,
we will. Bye, Jo.
Okay, bye.
Thanks so much.
Bye. It's good. Shift off the screen like that now.